Have you ever thought about a seed? Good seeds are little things that, if planted at the right time, the right place, and are tended to, become huge blessings down the road. Whatever seeds you're sowing today, seeds for your future, for your family, for your faith, or for actual food, you're at the right place. Welcome to the Sowing Seed Podcast. Now, here's your host, a man who knows a thing or two about, a thing or two, Matt Miller.
I read a book probably 12, 13 years ago now called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. For those of you guys that have not read the book, I highly encourage that you pick it up. In it, Robert Kiyosaki talks about passive income and developing money or ways to make money so that you get paid while you sleep. And so a lot of my time in business over the last decade has been spent developing passive income streams as much as possible so that we've got a little bit more control over our time in the process. Well, I've applied that same process to our farm. And when we moved here 6.5 years ago, there were virtually no trees on the property. Down the hill from our house on our 6 acres, aside from a pecan tree and a bunch of old oak trees, there was nothing. So the very first winter we got here, I set out planting as many fruit and nut trees as I could. My goal being that I wanted to have an orchard and nut trees that could provide sustenance for our family, that we could have a steady flow of food for ourselves and for friends and family as well throughout the year, and let God do his work with those plants and trees. So I bought probably 100 total trees. There wasn't a single ornamental. There wasn't anything that I purchased to start with that didn't have a purpose of producing fruit or something for our family to begin with. Over time, we've bought some crepe myrtles and some red buds and some other trees that have made our place look more pleasant. But for the first couple of growing seasons, our 100% focus was on planting fruit and nut trees. We've had a bunch that we've lost during that period of time. You know, my philosophy is kind of, throw enough mud up against the wall and see what sticks. So I overplanted things knowing that I was probably going to lose some. And so we planted, I think, 16 or 18 peach trees to start with. I think we're down to 10 or so. We planted, I think, 5 almond trees. We have all of those, though one of them blew over in a storm this last year, and we now have to have it propped up with T-posts and wire. Planted a bunch of mulberry trees, planted several apricot trees, tried planting apple trees, but they did not work here in this soil, and all of them have since died. So anyway, and then a bunch of pecan trees as well. So it's been fun over the last 6.5 years to slowly have those trees begin to yield fruit. Oh, we planted native blackberries as well. There was a farm down the road that had a bunch of them growing wild. My brother-in-law had a relationship with a guy and called him up one day and offered to pay him if we dug some up. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm going to mow those over anyway. We're about to sell the place. And so we dug up, I think, 30 blackberry bushes, small bushes, and planted them. Those have turned into a line of blackberries that's probably 50 yards long on our property. And 2 years ago, we picked close to 100 gallons of blackberries just to give you an idea. So looking at today, the farm, just from those trees and bushes, during the summer months, always just about has something that needs to be picked and that our family can live off of. We absolutely love blackberry season around here. It's not as much fun to pick them, though, to be honest, my wife and her sister love to go down and spend time talking and picking berries during late May and early June when we are full on with harvest time for them. Shortly after, the peaches come in, actually the apricots first, then the peaches. We've got a nectarine tree that comes in as well, etc. And it's just a joy to have constant fruit coming from down the hill. Not to mention that, we add the vegetable garden and what gets planted and harvested there throughout the spring and summer and fall. And there's always something that's being brought up and that we incorporate into whatever we're eating. Our summer months, we don't go to the store a whole heck of a lot because we've got so many tomatoes and peppers and onions and potatoes and squash and you name it coming up that, to be honest, at times it gets a little overwhelming, but it is such a blessing to have what we need to put a bunch of it up, whether it be through canning or through freezing, and to have a bunch to give away as well to friends and family. I can't encourage you enough, though, the power. There's the old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And for those of you that are thinking about homesteading or even not thinking about homesteading and you live in the city but would like to have more that you can grow to provide for your family and to teach your kids that process and the beauty and power of it, plant some trees and then be patient because it's going to take several years before you reap a single harvest from them. But then with some minor care and maintenance and pruning, that harvest will come for years and years and years to come. Hope this helps.
Thank you for listening to the Sowing Seed Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a 5-star review in iTunes or your podcast player of choice. So until next time, go plant the seed you need to succeed.